All right, we defined our project and we talked about planning ahead. So now let's move along, and what we're going to talk about this time is the different types of contracts that you can have, different contract methods. Essentially, there are two that it fits into, and that's a design bid build and a design build. What's the difference? It seems like they're very confusing with the definitions. Well, the design bid build means that you might have an architect design it, then a contractor will bid on that work that they see to be done, and then they will build it. So if you want to think about it as that way, where the architect might be the main lead or be in charge of the project. So this might be seen as a more costly and time-consuming method to a contracting or having a general contractor, but the idea is the architect then becomes your general contractor, your main contact that you're going to work with. Now you might separately contract with a written contract with an architect, and then separately get a general contractor. Make sure that your architect can work with that general contractor as well, and that architect will probably have a good idea of a good general contractor for you to bring on board. So that's design bid build, and we'll go over a few of those aspects as well. A design build means that you have the contractor or the project manager acting as the main contact, and they will go and take your complete project, or the project that you want to have done, and they will start to parse it up, and they will talk to different subcontractors, and they will take on the entire project, and they become that single point for you to control, and it also becomes a single point for you to pay as well. So the design build means that the builder shows up with a designer typically. They often have experience in the industry, so if they're doing something where it's a home or a small business renovation, they're going to be able to look at that and say, you know what, I did this kitchen like this before, I did this bathroom like this before, I did this expansion room like this before. We know how to do these things, and what we're going to do is contract or subcontract a designer to help out with that. So they will get a subcontractor, an architect as a subcontractor, or another designer. And small projects might not need a designer really, or an architect, and they might tell you that as well. But the idea is make sure that you see the design that they're proposing to build before they get started. But with that, they work hand in hand often because they're under the same roof or under the same sort of contract. And because of that, they are going to try to integrate all sorts of items. They're going to try to integrate the schedule and the building materials as well as the design items all together for you. So that can work out in your favor whenever you have a design build. Oftentimes, if you're against a tight schedule, a design build can work out, and sometimes it also works out for budget as well. So that's a design build versus the design bid build. Now, what I don't have on here is a lot of people will include like a hybrid. I'll say, well, you can do this and you can do that. Honestly, there are many ways which you can split this out, where the architect works with the engineer, and the engineer ends up being the main point of contact, and they act as the project manager, and they go hire a general contractor that does all the construction. The idea is that engineer, whoever you contract with, generally does not have the insurance or the liability and the items that will cover what the architect, if they're subcontracted, or the engineer that might have if they're your main contact. So there are some risks that are pseudo-hidden, but usually it's not an issue. The general contractor will cover all of those construction risks and costs, so anything with insurance and such is going to be on them anyway. But the hybrid can be any sort of mix of these basic two builds, and even though you might say talk to a design builder, they might bring on or have an architect that they subcontract with a lot, and if that's so, they're probably used to working well together, and if that architect happens to be busy, they might find somebody else that's very similar to work with, and they will be able to produce and watch over the design and be able to depict what your project is going to be. And that can work out pretty well for your total project outcome whenever you're looking at the design. So the other advantage of having design bid build is essentially you can see a lot of the design and design choices up front. Design build, they're usually looking at one or two kind of choices. They're not really looking to work with you as a process or a design process. They're more interested in listening to what you want and just building what you want. The design bid build allows you to take some time on the design side, a little bit more, to look at some of your options and weigh the decisions before you make them. It also works out whenever you're looking at, say, some of the different options, and you can start to get the design down before you go and get it priced out and get some estimates. So those are some options for you to review.